Okay, this is the apex. This is the base. This is the anterior side of the heart because we can see that there is the anterior intraventricular sulcus, which carries the intraventricular artery. This is then the posterior side of the heart. You can tell by this big, thick layer of adipose tissue. And there is also this sulcus called the coronary sulcus, which carries the coronary veins, coronary artery. Okay, so now we are going to look at how blood flows through the heart. So we are going to start on the right side. That is the left side. So let's start on this side. We know this is the right side because it's a smaller right ventricle. It's a smaller muscle. So blood's going to come in from the superior and the inferior vena cava. This is deoxygenated blood, and it's going to come into this area, which is called the right atrium. When pressure builds, it is then going to open this valve called the starts with a T. Tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve is then going to open and allow the blood to come through. These little structures here are called chordinae tendineae. Chordinae tendineae hold the valve up and make sure that it doesn't leak. The chordinae tendineae are connected to these muscles that look like a cone. These are called papillary muscles. Once the blood is in here, this is called the right ventricle. These down here are called the trabeculae carneae, and these make sure that the blood doesn't just sit here in the ventricle and make sure that it just keeps moving. After we have blood in the right ventricle, it is then going to travel out through the pulmonary artery because arteries carry blood away. The pulmonary artery...
Where is the pulmonary artery?
It's the lungs.
Yeah, but where is it in there?
Let's see. Let's stick a probe in here.
Does it come out the apex or towards the base?
Oh, it comes out towards the base. So, because once it gets down in the ventricles here, it is then going to pump back up. So, where does it go out?
Can you find it from the outside of the heart? This is your pulmonary artery here.
Okay. So, let's stick a probe in there. Oh, it's not cut.
It kind of comes out through this cut right here.
Okay, so it's going to come
so
out
stick your
this
probe
way.
right in there.
So this is where the blood comes out that was in the right ventricle. This is still deoxygenated, and it's going to come out of the pulmonary artery, and then it's going to come back in from the pulmonary veins, which are on the left side, the left pulmonary vein. So now we're going to go on the left side. And once this blood comes in, it is oxygenated, and it's going to start in the left atrium. Once you're in the left atrium, we are then going to go through this valve, which is called the bicuspid valve, also called the mitral valve. And both of these valves that are in between the atrium and the ventricles on both sides, there are the atrioventricular valves. And again, on this side, we have the chordinae tendineae, which then attach to these cone-like muscles called the papillary muscles. After blood is carried through this bicuspid valve, we are in the left ventricle. We can tell by how thick this muscle is. once we are in the left ventricle, we are then going to be pumping the blood through the aorta, which is right here, because blood always pumps back up. And it's going to come out right there. And this is an artery because arteries always come away. So the blood is coming up through the aortic artery. And a couple other structures that I didn't mention is the what is it called?
You're looking for the interventricular septum and the interatrial septum?
So this is the intraatrial septum. And then down here, this right here is the intraventricular septum, and that was the intraatrial septum.
What about the epicardium and myocardium?
So the heart is in a sac called the pericardium sac, which is made of fibrous pericardium. And inside the sac is parietal pericardium, which lines the inside of the sac. And then inside the sac is fluid called serous fluid, which helps to let the heart move and reduces friction. Once you're in the serous fluid, there's a lining that covers the heart, and that is called the epicardium, which is also called the visceral pericardium, because visceral means organ. Underneath that is the myocardium, which is all this muscle, because myo means muscle. And then in the inside of the heart is the endocardium. So all this shiny stuff is the endocardium. And oh, we forgot one thing. This right here, this looks like an ear, and it's called an auricle. The auricles allow for excess oxygen to come in, like when you're exercising, so that you can have more oxygen to pump the blood more.